Peace and love, everybody. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason here for a special, albeit a little briefer than usual, Resurrection Sunday Hope and Healing session. Today is Easter Sunday, or as referred to some as Resurrection Sunday, and we're here doing what we do every Sunday at 1 Eastern time, and that's bringing hope, healing, encouragement, and offering support as we do our best to navigate this thing called life as a human being on planet Earth. And so much love to everybody who's out there. I'm sending a whole bunch of love your way. And so today is Easter Sunday or Resurrection Sunday. And I always appreciate things about holidays. The word holiday is actually an iteration of holy day. And so there is a certain level of holiness attached to this specific day. And frankly, I mean, any day that God made is a holy day. God made every day, but nonetheless, there is some added value and meaningfulness in this day. And so, how is it that Easter is even determined when it is? Because sometimes it's in March, sometimes it could be like towards the end of April. And so this year it happens to be on the 9th of April. But how it's determined, and let me place it in the context of Easter is a Christian holiday, but the one who the day honors, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, was a Jew. And so the relationship or the context of Easter is in the context of actually Judaism. And so even that in itself is placed in the context of the Jewish holy days, because it's more than one day, of Passover. And Passover is determined, it shows up in our Gregorian calendar in a certain way, but it is actually the first day of the Hebrew month of Nisan. And it is the date of that. It's determined actually by the lunar calendar, okay, which is, when we look at time, I've said this before, when we look at time, how we measure time, what we call time here on planet Earth, it's measured according to objects moving through space, right? So a year is measured by how long it takes the Earth to revolve around the sun, all right? And then those other breakdowns of months and weeks and days, hours, minutes, seconds, so forth. Well, actually, a day is determined by the the rotation of the Earth spinning on its axis, and then hours, minutes, seconds are breakdowns uh, according to that. But in terms of cosmic time, if you will, it's not so arbitrary. It's based on movements of things. Like we have in one month, we might have 30 days, in another, we have 31, and one day we have 28 on most years, except on some years when it's 29. Shout out to all of the leap day babies. Anyway, so the way the Passover is determined is it's on the first day of Nisan. Nisan is determined by is the first day of the first full moon on or after the spring equinox. All right. And therefore, the way that Easter or Resurrection Sunday is determined is actually based on the first Sunday, because it's on the first day of the week, which is Sunday, the first Sunday on or following the first full moon of spring after the spring equinox. And so even for those who don't necessarily practice Christianity as their religion, this is a time of year that deals with new birth. Even in terms of the Easter eggs that are colored these bright pastel colors. In the spring season, you have um, the tulips beginning to blossom and the leaves appearing on the trees again and everything. New life coming forth again, and certainly Easter Sunday or Resurrection Sunday certainly points to new life, resurrected life, the resurrection of the spirit, even in the presence of the physical dying, or laying down the physical and bringing new life to the spiritual. And so that's what this is kind of all about. And again, I don't know how long I'm going to be today. Uh, People are probably with your families and everything, and I'm looking forward to going and being with mine. But at any rate, it's a day of honoring and recognizing that a man named Jesus, who was a liberator of the people, even in his flesh life, who was killed as a result of his commitment to setting captives free and bringing a sense of hope and healing to the people, and unashamedly owned his divinity, in the face of people feeling uncomfortable with it, or feeling the powers that be feeling threatened by it, right? Even the people from his hometown not really being able to accept the greatness that was the greatness that was walking in the earth through him, right? And so this day is about honoring his resurrection, but also it's not just that, it's about honoring your resurrection, for the spirit in you to come alive even in the midst of the vicissitudes of life, right? And so I was speaking earlier this morning at Transforming Love Community about on the topic of releasing the familiar and finding the upgrade, kind of building upon what last week's Sunday Hope and Healing session was, which was focused on, um, it was like in a similar vein of thought in terms of navigating inevitable life changes. And a reality is that as the story goes, the biblical story goes, as it relates to the Easter story, the resurrection story, is that he had been laid in a grave on, and this grave was kind of like you know, it wasn't underground, buried underground in the way that we think of in the West today, but it was kind of like in this stone tomb, and there is a more like a kind of like a cave ish, and there was a stone, there was heavy stone that was placed, to keep animals from getting to the body and stuff. And on Sunday morning, Mary and some of the other disciples went to visit his body, but his body wasn't there. This is how the story goes, that Mary asked, you know, end up seeing angels there, and Peter end up seeing angels there, and asked, you know, you've taken away my, where is he? My Lord has been taken away, and I don't know where he's been laid, right? And so then Yeshua speaks her name, and she thinks it's maybe the gardener because there's a garden nearby. And she pretty much says the same thing to him. And he says to her, Mary. And then she realizes, oh, snap, shoot, it's you. They were looking for a physical body. but he wasn't animating in a physical body anymore. And that isn't that how it is with us a lot of times. We get familiar with something, we get comfortable with something, we become acquainted with something, and then we get locked into that. And we feel like things have to be a certain way. They had walked with him, they had talked with him, they had eaten with him, and all of these different things. And so they felt a certain level of comfort in that, certain level of security in that. But it wasn't something that was going to last. There are certain things that we experience in our lives that, one thing that is certain about life is that it's ever changing, that it's ever in flux. And if we on our spiritual journey are going to ascend, if we're going to keep climbing higher and higher, then we've got to be willing to let go of what's been in our comfort zone. We've got to be willing to let go of where it is that we've been in order to go to where it is this next level that we can ascend to. I believe that, I know for a fact, as a matter of fact, the God wants us all to be blessed, wants us all to experience rich relationships, wants us all to experience a sense of divine freedom, wants us all to be free to love and to live and to laugh and to celebrate and to be empowered and to overcome challenges and the things that get in the way of our progress. Last week I talked about the dweller on the threshold, that energy that's standing in the doorway of our blessings. And we've got to challenge and overcome that dweller on the threshold, push through it, whatever that fear might be, whatever that anxiety might be, whatever that baggage from the past might be that's keeping us from moving forward into the realm of our blessings. We've got to be willing to challenge that, conquer it, move through it to the place where our blessings are awaiting us, right? And so, like I said, this is something that I spoke about yesterday, and last Sunday, and it speaks to also where we are at this juncture of Resurrection Sunday. Mary had been acquainted with the physical presence of her teacher, of her friend, of someone that she came to deeply love, value, cherish, revere. But that wasn't going to be something that was going to be permanent. Things changed. He was still alive, but in a different form. A lot of times we get attached to whatever form our blessings come in. The only thing that we really need to get attached to is God, the presence of God. And God might show up through an opportunity. God might show up through a person. God might show up through a relationship. God might show up through a job. God might show up through an opportunity or through a particular situation. However, if we get more attached to whatever that is that fits our comfort zone, whatever that is that we're getting to the point of actually placing the significance of it before God, then what we've essentially done is made an idol out of the vessel or the form or the mechanism through which we were blessed, instead of placing the continuous focus on God in the midst of whatever that is. Because in truth, there are an infinite number of ways in which we can be blessed. And there are certain seasons. There's a time and a season for everything. And for some seasons, this thing right here was absolutely wonderful. But every season, only lasts for so long. That's the nature of life on planet Earth. God can take what was experienced in this season, inspire you to appreciate that for what it was, to let go of it and move to the higher thing that will be available to you. All right. So I'm not going to go doing a whole bunch of talking about that. We're going to get into the healing. I'm going to do a little bit of healing regarding this for anybody who's watching now or anybody who checks us out later, and you can benefit from this healing. So what we're doing is healing for a sense of newness of life, to be invigorated within us, new inspiration, ability to release that which its time has passed, or that which time needs to pass, in order to make room for the new thing that God wants to do now in your life now. The blessings that you've perhaps prayed for but are afraid to let go of, the past in order to move into the bright future that God has in store for you. So in this spirit, God, thank you that you're a healer, a redeemer, a transformer, a transmuter, and a bestower of all good blessings. Through the union we share, through the power of your pure love, through your Holy Spirit, I call forth your healing, transformation, resurrection on the behalf of all of those who are connected with this broadcast right now, or even the playback. Neutralizing the root cause of all resistance to healthy change. From the point of the causal root in the entire energetic structure of every strand of DNA and every cell of each person's bodies, every string particle of each person's existence. Transmuting that into and replacing it with a sense of invigoration, enthusiasm, joy, and profound fulfillment, and being in the flow that you have available and that you are presenting each and every one of us with, to go to that new level that you have for us, new blessings in a transcendent way. And I bear witness to our wholeness on this date and in this time and space called now. Thank you. Thank you, God, for this gift of your divine love. It is done. It is done. It is done. All right. So let's get into the healing, shall we? So let's look at something came up in the Transcending the Matrix support session earlier this week, in terms of getting to the next level. And a lot of times what happens is we have a ceiling. It's an invisible ceiling. We don't necessarily see it, but there's a ceiling that we've got to be able to actually kind of overcome. So instead of continuing to hit our heads above this glass ceiling, we want to delete the ceiling. We want to delete all ceilings, in fact, to allow for continuous, unhindered ascension, growth, progress. All right. Okay, and we also want to realize that in some cases we get locked into our comfort zone. Okay, so I want to look at our attachment to our comfort zone. There's a saying, I think I mentioned this last week too. Heard a gentleman by the name of Ed Hubbard say that everything that you've ever wanted is one step outside of your comfort zone. I believe there's a lot of truth to that. And so let's look at the attachment to the comfort zone and the addiction to the familiar. Ooh, addiction to the familiar. The biggest addiction isn't alcohol, any other form of recreational drug. It's not even any form of prescription drug. It's not sex. It's not pornography. Perhaps the greatest addiction of all is the addiction to the familiar. Our lives can be negatively impacted by our addiction to the familiar. So we want to delete the root cause of that addiction. And that is in terms of, uh, it's a way that we can feel safe. It's a way we can feel safe based on our sense of control, our sense of having control. And so we want to actually paradigm shift our perspective on that from feeling safe based on our sense of being in control to feeling safe based on our being aligned with God and God's perfect will for our lives. That's the only place that the true security really exists. Okay. All right. And so let's look at the things that would be barriers to that. So let's look, for instance, at um, let's look at the collective consciousness in terms of um, just being overly focused on um, the carnal aspects of life, if you will. Okay, and really, all that carnal means is placing the stuff of the physical world that you can, in some way, tap into and focus on above God. That's essentially what it means to be carnally minded and carnally focused. All right. And so, with respect to that, let's actually look at seeing generations upon generations, experiencing generations upon generations of family members, people in our community operating that way. Okay. Including those who say that they're people of faith. Right? It happens. All of us have times where we get caught up in the material realm, the physical world, and a sense of a need for control of outcomes playing out the way that we think they should or the way we think they need to. Okay. All right. So let's optimize, increase level of trust in God, trusting God. Okay. It's easier to trust God if you really have an intimate relationship with God. Talk with God about anything and everything. Okay. Including the things that you don't feel very good about. Maybe even especially those things. Okay. The things that you feel embarrassed about, the ways that you messed up and gone a way that wasn't really the right thing to do, or the right approach to take. All right. And so with that, let me just kind of create a sense of greater intimacy with God. To really get into a sense of greater intimacy with God, the fear of intimacy has to be released. So we're going to delete the root cause of fear of intimacy with God, and fear of intimacy in general. One thing that is a part of intimacy is vulnerability. To a certain degree, uh, a certain level of vulnerability has to be present for there to be a deep intimacy, right? All right, so that goes back to that issue of security or fear of being in danger, fear of being hurt. That's more it, fear of being hurt. So we want to transmute that fear of being hurt to faith that you're protected and that you're taken care of and that you're safe. Okay. All right. We want to look at feeling most safe when you're in the presence of God. Now, the reality is that you can't go anywhere and God not be there. You can't go anywhere that God isn't except in your own mind, right? That's the only place you can get away from God is in your own mind. All right. Your mind might lead you to go some places that you ought not go, that aren't really serving your highest and best good. But let's deal with that in terms of a sense of, let's look at also a sense of worthiness, feeling worthy of having an intimate relationship with God, and maybe not feeling worthy because of mistakes that you've made in your past. And so we want to purify that through the power of God's pure unconditional love and transmute it into openness and receptivity to God's grace and forgiveness. And commitment, self commitment to live and operate in a way that you hold yourself accountable for your actions and even for your thoughts. Okay. And that if you get off the wagon, you're able to get back on board, moving forward again. Reality is that as humans, we get off the path somehow. We get sidetracked, make detours, backslide sometimes. The key is that when you recognize that's the case, course correct. So let's take a look at spiritual compass. All right, and correcting spiritual compass to operate effectively with 100% effectiveness, and strengthen your willpower to walk in alignment with the direction and the guidance of God. All right. I look at fear of letting go. It's not actually come up as such an issue. Let's look at fear though of the unknown. Okay. Because sometimes we hold on to the past because we don't know what the new thing will bring. So let's explore that now and look at enthusiasm, openness, and enthusiasm about the unknown, feeling safe in the unknown, feeling secure in the unknown, while feeling very enthused about it at the same time. So, because you know that although you don't know what the outcome is or how everything will play out, that a God who loves you and who loves you more than you even realize and wants to bless you even more than you realize. All right. Okay. And so let's look real quickly too at commitment to commitment to operating in the flow of your divine good. Mm, I'm feeling something with that. Commitment to operating in the flow of your divine good. And the reality is that your divine good may show up differently than it has in the past. Don't get too attached to the form or to the mechanism through which it comes. A reality is that there are going to be some things that are going to change in your life. There are people who will be physically present who at some point won't be physically present in that same way anymore. There's some opportunities where there is an open door, and then that time may come where that door closes, and you've got to find the new door that God is opening. You know, so really being able to be in a flow with that, embracing that, being in complete alignment with it, to where you're not really phased in a profoundly negative way, even when drastic changes are necessary or when drastic changes take place. Look at increasing openness to the flow of inspiration. And inspiration or inspire, just like expire, the root of it is spirit. So when you expire, what is it that you do? You breathe out spirit for it not to return again. When you're feeling inspired, you're taking in spirit. You're operating in that flow, right? And in the flow of the spirit. Okay. Now let's look at all right. Well, I'm seeing a lot of things that are looking rather improved. I'm feeling good about that. Okay. Um, let's let's open those spiritual eyes to help walk by faith when you can't walk by sight. Actually, let's even deal with operating based on what God is showing you in the spirit before operating on what's showing up for you in the material realm for you to see based on that level of evidence, right? All right. So an optimize spiritual vision and insight and understanding and acceptance. Ooh, that acceptance is a big one. Optimizing spiritual acceptance. Mm. There's some things in life we need to resist. Sometimes we resist the wrong thing. Sometimes we resist the guidance of God. Sometimes we resist the new blessing that's coming our way. Sometimes we resist change. What we need to do is resist, you know, the negative self-talk that we engage in. What we want to do is resist the fear, doubt, and and all of the stuff that's seeking to distract us from what life is really about, right? Okay, all right. So with that, I'm pretty much going to wrap it up for today. Um, God, thank you so much for the healing that's taken place on this Resurrection Sunday. May we go forth. May each person who has listened to this go forth feeling new life, allowing the presence of the Christ within us to rise up and be the central focus in our lives. Thank you for these and all other blessings. It is done, it is done, it is done. In Hashem Yeshua HaMashiach. Happy Resurrection Sunday to everybody out there. Many blessings to you. Sherry, good to see you today, Sherry. Happy Resurrection Sunday to you. Many blessings to you, and whatever it is that you're doing today, as you go your way, may you do so rejoicing and grace and peace and sense of authentic empowerment. And to everybody who else has been with us today, send you forth with peace and love, and continue to check us out. We're always putting out content in hopes that we can help transform this world from a place of decadence and misery to a place of love and light, right? And so with that said, you can find us on YouTube at Matrix Healing, on Facebook at Royce Fletcher Thomason, on Instagram at Royce Fletcher Thomason, and on Instagram at Transcending the Matrix. God bless you all. I love you, and enjoy the balance of your day.